be vocal. A lot of people don't like showing their actual like personality, but people relate to the human behind the photo, right? Your feed is like a highlight reel. It's curated.
In a nutshell, Lamisa Kubir is a blogger and a content creator with a focus on fashion and lifestyle. Better known as the Damsel in Dispute in the world of Instagram, Lamisa started her journey as a writer for a college blog and has now built a sizable audience for fashion-specific content on the platform. Currently based in Toronto and New York, she's pursuing a career in social media and mobile marketing. This episode of the State of the Creators podcast is packed with value. I sit down with the Damsel in Dispute to talk about growing an Instagram presence, all about digital marketing, sustainable fashion, and dealing with identity crisis, something that I go through every day, and the challenges you face by putting yourself out there on the internet. Now, this is the part where I plug in for our sponsors, and yet again, the sponsor is me. Now, if you've gotten any value out of the podcast of the last few episodes, it would mean the world to me if you can subscribe to the channel on YouTube. This really helps us out a lot. And of course, if you're on the video, leave a like, comment, because that pleases the algorithm gods greatly. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, a rating and a review helps us out a lot. Share it with a friend or tell them personally if you think they'll find this valuable. And doing any of this really helps us out a lot because it keeps the podcast ad-free. So thank you if you've done any of this already. And also, if you want some of the coolest digital content straight into your inbox, you can sign up to my creative newsletter at www.tosifakas.com. Without further ado, here is the State of the Creators podcast with Tosifakas featuring Lamisa Kubir, aka the Damsel in Dispute. Hope you enjoy the show. This is the State of the Creators, a show about creative individuals who are on a quest to build something out of nothing. One thing that most people make a mistake in is they ask a question and then they don't listen to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then they don't ask a follow-up. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, okay, you're talking about your dog, and immediately they move into like, so what's your favorite food? But
like,
you know,
I told you my dog just died.
Exactly.
Do you want me to look anywhere? Like I'm just like,
No. We'll just talk.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless you have a specific PSA for the crowd or the crew. Yeah.
I'm already on my bad side, so it's fine.
Do you want to swap seats? This is actually my bad side as well. I don't know. It's I think we're just getting out of our comfort zones.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Getting out of your comfort zone and creating stuff. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before anything else, your handle, the Damsel in Dispute. I assume you're the damsel.
I am.
What's the dispute?
Okay, so when I created it, I followed this one account. It was called the Damsel in Distress Denim. And I really, really liked her content.
Right.
But obviously, I didn't want to like just copy her handle. But growing up, I just always loved the term the damsel in distress. I was never the one, but I really liked the ring of it.
Right.
And I'm someone who like goes on a lot of disputes daily, so I was just like, I came up with it. It's honestly, there's no like long story behind it.
Okay.
It just like came to me, and I was like, let's go with it.
So I think that's a nice ring to it. I know for a fact that when I think of that, you come in mind. So for the people unfamiliar with who you are, who is Lamisa Kubir, and what do you do?
Here's the thing. So whenever people ask me, what do you do? It's always like a lot of things. And I feel like any creator would be able to relate. I'm sure you can too. But I like to, I guess, call myself a content creator. I mainly create content around fashion, lifestyle, and beauty. And other than that, I obviously work as a marketing consultant right now in the B2B space. Okay,
fantastic. And you're also studying right now.
Yeah. So I'm doing a certification in speech media communication. And I'm starting my master's in digital marketing.
Fantastic. And how's that going? Like the speech?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm
what's
working.
Like people usually don't go that route. So what's it about?
Right. So with working in the B2B industry, I knew I wanted to do more creative stuff and I wanted to do more B2C. So I wanted to pursue my master's in digital marketing because I wanted to do more creative work and move from like the analytical side to the creative side. But when you work in marketing, you work with PR individuals as well. And I wanted a strong base in PR, which is why I decided to do media communications as well.
It's interesting because do you have a marketing degree prior?
No.
Exactly.
No, I did not.
So for me as well, I got into architecture because I was always creative. That's what, like I could draw, and everyone was like, oh, you got to get into architecture because you can draw. That's the Bangladeshi thing.
Yeah, you can draw.
Architect. That's it. It doesn't matter if you're shit at math or don't have no idea how buildings work. And then I got into architecture, and almost immediately in the first semester I knew I was going to do it. I moved on, finished it pretty much, went through it, I don't know how.
So you did your full undergrad?
Bachelor's, and then for master's I did project management, and my minors I took marketing. That's when, but on the sidelines I was doing a few of these other things, so Plantic and just doing my graphics design and all this kind of stuff, which had some marketing, advertising value. So I always thought that, okay, marketing basically means advertising and social media. So I got into a marketing gig pretty much straight off my university. And then I realized that marketing isn't about that. It's about pretty much bringing people in. And how you bring people into your business, it's so analytical. It's so numbers based. And it's interesting you bring that up, because a lot of us have that notion in our heads that marketing is all fun, it's all easy, but there's a big analytical side to it. And it's interesting because you want to move away from that, but focus on the creative side of things.
Just because I feel like there's two parts to it. There's the analytical side, and then there's the creative side. You can put out a creative, I don't know, like a logo of a content, right? But you also have to measure the success, and that's where your analytical side comes in, where you have to measure impressions, click-through rates, and all that fun stuff. So I want to make sure that I have a solid base in both sides.
So I guess moving on from that marketing side of things, tell me about the fashion blog that you kind of started off with, which was the College Fashionista. Tell me a bit about that, because I assume you did it while you were in college.
So I interned there.
Okay.
And all interns had to submit articles, obviously fashion related to fashion and beauty. And they would edit it, and if they did like what you were pitching, they would put it on the site. So I wrote 5 articles for them throughout my time there, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. 3 times it made it to the homepage. So that was kind of like a pat on the back and encouragement. Like I knew I could
give you confidence
exactly.
As well.
And I chose topics just very randomly. Again, it just came to me. Like for one of the articles, I talked about a Marc Jacobs show and like how you can take looks from the runway and wear it off the runway as well. For one, I talked about like ideas for brunch outfits. So very like ordinary things, just to help people express themselves better and like explore with their style.
Right. And I want to go back to that point in your, I guess, growth and early career where you had this spark that this is what I want to do, or like fashion is the thing that I'm most passionate about. Did you always have that in you, or was it like a thing that that changed? This was like a switch. What was the story there?
So in order to like address that, I have to tell you a little bit of my journey
Feel
before.
Free.
So from a very young age, I was very into fashion. Like my sister and I, we had this notebook, and we had this imaginary store that we were designing for. We called it Trends at the time. And we would make all of these sketches on it, like since I was like 4 or 5. But obviously I grew up here. I grew up in a very orthodox family, and like that was never an option. Like going into university, my dad was like, okay, what do you want to do? Engineering, like CS. I had to convince him and explain what computer science was, because to him, he was like, obviously you're going to do engineering. I was even supposed to go to like California for aerospace engineering, but I knew I did not want to do it. So I went into CS. After my first year, I was like, absolutely not, because I was really shutting down my creative side. And I did not. I'm sure you can relate. Like if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a creator, you cannot do a desk job. You know what I mean? Like you need to move around. You need some kind of disruption. You don't like things to be like
the same.
Just still. So I when I was there, I thought of just like posting online, you know what I mean? It's just as simple as that. I wasn't thinking of, whether is this going to blow up or anything like that. I knew somewhere down the line I wanted to do a store, whether it's like an online store,
or release
exactly, like, you know, like work on my brand.
Right.
So, I'm very grateful that people received my content really well and like engaged with it, and I received a lot of support. Because of that, my sister and I were able to launch our brand, which is Kabir. We did a 2-day pop-up shop where we completely sold out.
Right.
So I think that was the point where I knew that this can really be like something big. You know what I mean?
And was it based in Bangladesh or in Canada?
Okay. It was based in Bangladesh, which was crazy because I don't live here, right? But I get so much support here.
Yes.
And I just wanted to test the waters and see how would people react if I were to create like a fusion line, right? You see me wearing a lot of like Western clothing, not as much as like traditional, but I wanted to see like whether I can dive into that market as well. And it did really well, and I'm very, very, very grateful.
When you started this journey, did you have a specific target audience in mind, or was it more like, I just want to go ahead and see what works? Because you did move around, because you were
quite a lot,
because you're in Bangladesh and then you moved to Canada when you were younger.
Yeah, I was also in the States for a little bit too.
Right, and then you came back in Bangladesh, and then you went back in Canada.
Yeah, a
lot of airplanes. So did you have an audience in mind? Because that's something I personally struggle with. Like the Bangladeshi audience, and then you've got the Australian audience, and then you've got a global audience.
Yeah.
Who do you cater for, and how did you do it? I want to know more about that.
I feel like that's something that you will figure out as you move forward.
Right.
Just because the more content you put out, there's so many sophisticated softwares right now that'll tell you like the demographics.
Yeah.
And I knew starting off, I would have more of a Bengali crowd.
Right.
My target, like moving forward, when I started seeing like where my target audience or people who followed me belonged to, or where they were coming from, I realized it was mainly Southeast Asian women.
Oh wow.
Didn't have to be in Bangladesh or India. Could be like people like me living abroad.
Right.
And I feel like that's my main target audience, is just like brown girls like me living anywhere in the world.
Okay. And how much of your identity had a part to play in this? Because that's something, again, I struggle with, and I'm sure a lot of creatives out there struggle with as well, especially those who move around, because you feel like you're neither here nor there.
No,
like
exactly.
if I ask you right now, are you a Bangladeshi or a Canadian?
I have no idea.
Exactly, right?
I have no idea.
I lived away from Bangladesh for almost 10 years now, and the more time passes, the more I feel confused.
Yeah.
And I don't know if at one point I'll completely go over the edge and think I'm Australian or something like that, which is not possible.
Yeah.
Always,
of course.
So how do you use that to, I guess, build your brand and build an audience? Do you use that as an inspiration, or do you completely shut it off?
No, I definitely use that as an inspiration. Right. I relate to you so much. Right. I've lived in Canada like 13 years.
Yeah.
So it's been like almost half here and there. And I relate to both cultures, to be honest. Exactly. I wrote a piece on this at school, actually, where I talked about like just that identity crisis that I have sometimes, because when I'm here, I'm just not all the way Bengali, and when I'm there, it's just like I'm also not fully Canadian either. Like, you know what I mean?
There was this quote, I think, too foreign for home and too home for the foreign.
That's awesome. I didn't hear.
It's something like that.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I can never shut down my roots. Like I am a Bangladeshi for sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like my sister doesn't even identify her, like she literally introduces herself as a Bangladeshi just because she lived in the States. She wasn't even in Canada as much.
Okay.
But like my parents are from here. I grew up here. But also growing up, like years where I developed like as a woman, I feel like I spent over there. So it's just like a bit of both, and I use that as an inspiration because I know there's many others like me. And I'm sure that shows in like the work I do. It's not fully here or there. It's a bit of both.
You spoke about your earlier career moves in CS and stuff, and bringing up your dad. And did you have supportive parents?
Okay, this is I'm glad you brought it up because everyone thinks I have the best dad in the world, which is true right now. Yeah. But growing up, it wasn't so. Yeah. Oh my gosh, they were not. I wouldn't say they weren't supportive. I feel like I don't want to blame them. Like our earlier generations, they didn't grow up with the exposure that we grew up with. You know what I mean? They didn't have that kind of like knowledge or like. There was no social media for you to understand that other side of things. You know what I mean? They grew up in a very sheltered, a very like
closed off
society. Exactly. And they were pressured into doing so many things. They thought that this was the norm. So growing up, my dad had full control over everything I did. I was never allowed to have any sleepovers. I slept over at my best friend's house after my O-levels. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. If I were to go outside to get some chalmui or something, I would have someone follow me. So similarly, like when I had to go off to university, obviously at that time I wasn't working, so he had to support me with my tuitions. Right. And he was just like, there's absolutely no way I'm paying for anything else if it's not engineering. Yeah. Like you're a science student, go for it, right? But what I did that helped me is like, I didn't just sit there and accept whatever was thrown at me. I rebelled. And I had conversations no matter how difficult they were. I sat him down. I had these conversations. There were many, many, many arguments. Right. And I feel like there was this one term in school that I took off because I absolutely like couldn't handle it. It was just the term after my first year. Yeah. And I was like, how do I explain this to my parents? Because they're like, okay, you're in CS, you're doing well. Why would you want to switch, right? Because I wasn't trying to fail either, right?
Exactly, because you know if you're doing well at it, you might as well try to enjoy it. Yeah,
exactly. But I wasn't enjoying it. Right. So what I did is I reached out to this one franchise. I don't think I've spoken about it still because we were still building it up. And I had several meetings over Skype. I was only 19 at the time. Yeah. I had these meetings. I flew out to LA once just to like figure out like if I can bring this to Bangladesh, and I was very successful. So I went with that, whatever I accomplished, that project to my dad, and I was like, look, I am bringing this franchise to Bangladesh. Right. And I did this all by myself. I had no help whatsoever. I didn't go to you for help. Yeah. And I had this business plan. I had everything written down. And I was like, this is where I belong. I cannot do computer science anymore. I'm moving to economics and management because that sounds cool. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And
like,
that will help you in
that
what
will
you're
help
doing.
That would help me. And I had like my electives were all like economics, management, business, marketing. So he agreed, and that was just like kind of like an underlying like what do you call it, like the formula used for anything else. You know what I mean? It's just like prove yourself to your parents. Show them, don't just tell them, because Bengali parents just assume you're good for nothing. That's just like you know what I mean? Like just sitting, you're gonna work your ass off and they're gonna be like, you're sitting around doing nothing.
It's a thing.
And you're just like,
you just study the whole day.
Look at other kids. I'm doing so much, like I'm actually doing something. But and now he's so supportive. It's beyond belief, very supportive.
Now that's very interesting as well, because for a lot of the I guess the creatives who would be listening to this, they would struggle, and I obviously struggle and still do at times to explain what I do to my parents, to others, to my parents' friends. Obviously, that's an interesting equation is there.
Relatives.
That's said relatives. And what I found out that the best way to get out of it is to build credibility. Yeah. So if you actually go and do stuff and that actually manifests into something, then that credibility gives you the boost that, hey, Dad, Mom, look at this that I've made. Look at this, the amount of money people are spending on this thing, or the eyes that it's getting. This is something that worth pursuing. And I think that's one thing that a lot of the creators could, I guess, pursue and think of first. Like, you have to prove first.
For sure. Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, obviously they're paying for your tuition. They're paying for your food. You can't really.
You have to please them.
Absolutely. And that's another thing as well. You can't just rebel. You can't just go out and be like, I want to do this. That's it.
No.
And obviously, we speak in a very, very privileged situation where our parents have been able to afford the lifestyle that we have to be able to even make these decisions.
Of course.
But even then, there are decisions that need to be made, and we still need some sort of, I guess, guidance in building that. I want to go a bit on a different path to talk about Instagram specifically, and I guess your social media following.
Right.
So are you only on Instagram most of the time? I mean, is that your biggest...
That's my biggest platform right now. I'm on YouTube a little bit, but not as much as I want to.
Yep.
Instagram, I feel like, is where I get most work from. So I've just chosen to like focus on that.
Right. I want to know more about the technicalities of it, right? Obviously, it's very easy to shun Instagram. I mean, you're not an influencer per se, but whoever does their career on social media, we usually shun them and say, it's too simple. Anybody can do that stuff. But there is a lot of work that goes into it.
For sure.
So I want to know bit more about the technicalities about how you plan, how you schedule, because when I'm on your Insta, you're always posting stories. You've got stuff coming up all the time. You've got announcements. You've got you also do advertisements as well. So how do you plan it all out?
Right.
What's the process? That's something I want to know more about.
Right. The first step to even developing or like growing your audience is to post consistently.
Yep.
So whether that's consistent is different for different people.
Right.
So for me, it's every day at 11 p.m. Bangladeshi time, I have to post
something.
Right. For some people, it's like every 3 days. For some people, it's like 3 times a day. You have to be consistent no matter what. When I was in Toronto, I was working with a management company, so that helped me a little bit because they would bring like these sponsored brands who wanted to do sponsored posts, all kinds of work. They would send me those campaigns. Now brands just reach out to me directly. I plan weeks ahead. So any of the content you see on my page right now, I've planned a month ago.
Okay, that's awesome.
Just because they will send out products to you, and they also have like, so when you're talking with a brand, how this works is, it works 2 ways. Sometimes you reach out to the brands that you really connect with. Sometimes they reach out to you.
Right.
And then you reach you create the contract together, if that makes sense. They have certain deliverables. If it's a paid if it's a paid content, you have to discuss your rates. You have to send over a media kit. Media kit is basically, it's like a resume. You talk about
portfolio.
Like a portfolio. In mine, I choose to include case studies. So fashion brands I've worked with before, how that engagement went, how many likes I got, impressions, reach. A beauty brand that I've worked with, just because I want to send
credibility.
Exactly. And if it's a beauty brand, they wouldn't be interested in like your fashion post. So I want to include as much as I can. I worked with like Cineplex in Toronto. I have that as well. And then you include a little bit. You included a little spiel about yourself, so what you're doing, who your target audience is, again, the engagement rates, all the analytical stuff, different kind of services that you can provide. So whether it's a takeover, just a sponsored post, sponsored stories.
So do you do this all by yourself?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much like at least a part-time job, at least.
I mean, you can really make an income out of it. I'll tell you that for sure. And basically, that goes back and forth, and then they send you products. If you have to post with something, they will ask for any like financial stuff if they have to send you your pay or whatever. And then that takes a few weeks to plan, because when they send you products, you already have other campaigns lined up, so you have to let them know. So it's all about like it's difficult to plan. I use this app called Unum. How
do you spell it?
UNUM.
Okay.
And you can schedule posts on there. It's super easy. It's on your phone. I don't do anything sophisticated either. I'm that person who like writes everything down. I have a Google Doc where I have brands that I'm working with next. I write, these are the posting dates. This is how I want the content to be. So I don't know, like maybe I want to pose in a certain area. Like I want to shoot like at least in 2 outfits. So I write all of those things down. I write down hashtags that I have to use, brands that I have to tag. And I write down the date, and then I use my Google Calendar, and then I put it in my Google Calendar. create content for this brand.
So your calendar must be full.
Yeah, because I have my other work as well that I have to fit in with this and school as well now.
Exactly.
And then with Anam, you can schedule posts and it looks like your Instagram feed, but like in the future.
Right.
Yeah. So you know which post is coming up.
And do you and you obviously have to color grade everything that you do as well, because you've got a consistent theme that you follow. So there's a lot of technicality that you have to do in terms of operation, but there's also that research aspect of it to know what's the best hashtag, what's the best
posting times.
Right. Do you have a schedule in general? Because obviously you've got so many things going on. You've got a brand that you run, you've got a fashion blog, you run your Instagram, you've got your university. What's a day like for you?
Right. So what I prioritize most is the freelance stuff that I'm doing for my clients. So my weekly schedule depends on that. No week looks the same.
Right.
Again, it all depends on how much content I have to shoot for that week. So I plan it around that as well. Obviously I try to shoot in the mornings. I try to shoot in the weekends if I have my workload is crazy during the week. So all of my classes right now are in the evening, because obviously a lot of people work in the morning. Like I do all my work for my clients in the morning as well. So what I try to do is maybe one day I'll work on work, and then the second day I'll do work on my upcoming posts for Instagram.
And do you have like a morning routine or night routine or anything like that you usually have that help you, I guess, plan your day better?
Again,
or everything's different?
Everything's different, but I use my Google Doc, my Google Calendar, and my software. It's always up.
Always there.
Always there, because it's hard to remember. You really have to look at it and be like, oh.
So has it ever happened that you forgot to put something in?
Oh yeah, I've forgotten to post some things.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a brand deal?
It was a brand deal, yeah.
And you lose the brand?
They understand. Most of them are understanding, yeah.
Right. Talk to me about brands as well, because this is something I think a lot of creatives struggle with, is monetizing off of their content, whether social media or anywhere else. I guess in your line of work, with the audience that you've built on Instagram, as well as the stuff that you do, how, other than the consultancy, which I would assume is very straightforward, I guess, agreement. You give services, you get paid by the hour, however it works. But for your content and your followers, how do you go about monetizing it?
Right. So the first thing that I feel like worked for me and might work for anyone who's looking to monetize their page is that if you're looking to work with brands, and right now they don't agree to a sponsored post, or they are not willing to pay you, build content similar to what you want to go into. You know what I mean? If you want to be a fashion blogger, build a lot of, I'll use a brand, for example. If you want to work with Zara, for example, create content that look like you're wearing Zara clothes. Right. You know what I mean? If you want to work with Louis Vuitton, shoot content with that looks luxury, that looks luxe, with bags, shoes, whatever. What you can do then is send them what you've created. They will be able to, they have sophisticated software to assess where your audience is from, what the demographics look like, if they're all male, female, engagement and stuff. So I keep stressing this because I do get a lot of queries daily, and I say that your follower count does not matter. There are people with a lower following than me who make more. Again, there are people who have a higher following than me, and I feel like I make more than them. It all depends on that niche market that you've developed. How much do you engage them on the daily basis? So if you have 40K followers, for example, and 57% of it is just male, but you're working with fashion brands that cater to women, and in your comment section or your like section, which they have access to as well, they're seeing a lot of just random comments. They might not choose to work with you, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether your post gets 10,000 likes. It matters who's going to their website from your page. If there's a conversion there, they're able to track. You have your unique, when I ask people to swipe up or click on a link, those are my
that's what you get paid for.
Yeah, exactly. they're able to see whether or not people go from my page to that page and if they're purchasing something. That's one side of it. You also get paid for brand awareness, and you also get paid for the content itself, because they're able to use that content for marketing purposes.
They can always repost from
exactly. So when they ask my rates, there's a rate for the content, the photo that you've created, the video that you've created. There's a rate for if you want it to go as an Instagram post, and there's another rate for stories. There are other rates for like takeovers and all that fun stuff.
So you, I guess in your media kit, you put all this stuff. And it's categorized and it's different. And when you say reaching out to these brands, how do you go about that? So obviously it's, it can be not only quite intimidating if you have never done this before, but also the fact that you don't know who to go to. So how do you go about that?
A lot of times it's as easy as just go to influencers that you follow, that you love, and people who have a similar following like yours. See who they're collaborating with, see who they're working with. Reach out to those brands, because you know for a fact that they do work with influencers. Reach out to a lot of brands. A lot of brands will get back to you, a lot of brands won't, and that's not like their intention. Sometimes there has to be more than one email. I reach out via email mainly, but I also DM some brands too, just because I feel like they do get a lot of emails on the daily. So sometimes I'll just send them a quick DM, and I've gotten a lot of work that way too.
And do you usually use Instagram DMs to communicate, or do you also use like LinkedIn and other areas to connect?
I've personally never used LinkedIn to reach out. I've used LinkedIn to find someone. So a lot of times you don't know who to reach out to, because they don't right away tell you they don't say who the social media coordinator is, or like who their marketing consult or personal is, right? So I go to LinkedIn, and then I research. You have to do your research. You go from one person to another person.
It's like another word for stalking.
Exactly. Basically, you stalk them. There are extensions that you can download. I'm trying to think of one. I can't think of one right now, but if you Google it, some will come up. They'll give you emails of people. Obviously emails that they've put out themselves. Sometimes it's like hard. It's hard to like figure out. Like it takes a lot of time to find it. But their extensions, they'll tell you what their email is, just off like LinkedIn even.
Obviously consent and
No,
that's pretty cool. So you basically go on LinkedIn to research, or if you know who they're already collaborating with, you do a bit of research about that as well, and then you reach out to these brands.
Sometimes just reach out to the email that's on their Instagram page or like their website. Just reach out. They will guide you to the right person.
And do you plan your I guess, like, do you have certain goals that you want to meet quarterly ahead of time, or is it more like because do you do this is it full-time, would you say, or part-time-ish?
Part-time. I feel like I'm in a stage where I definitely could go full-time. But again, I have love for other things too. So
how do you, I guess, pick and choose that, like what you want to do right now? Because again, that's something I can relate to as well. I want to do 10 things at the same time, and this is something I've struggled with, and I've recently read this book called The One Thing, which I guess has helped me a little bit to be able to prioritize. But what do you do when you want to do 10 different things?
I'm that person, like I have a lot of things going in my head, and I love to explore everything I want to do, get creative, but at the same time I'm also very practical. With Instagram and everything, I have a lot of engagement right now. 40 years down the line, I don't know how it's gonna be, and that's not me being like I don't think I'm good enough to like sustain it. It's more like I don't know if my audience will, you know what I mean? Like with Instagram, like Instagram wasn't even a thing for like a lot of years, and now it is. And then next it's gonna be TikTok. TikTok's gonna be big.
Are you on TikTok?
I'm not, but I have to get on. It's gonna be big.
It's already the number one downloaded app, I think, this month or something like that. It's
gonna be big. I want to make sure that I have security as well, and like consulting with clients and like helping them build campaigns is something I thoroughly enjoy, because I'm in the fashion beauty industry, but I love creating campaigns for brands in the food industry and like other industries as well. So I want to make sure that I'm doing a lot of those things as well. I don't do everything that I want. I pick and choose in the way that I do two things. One that is bringing me like income that is sustainable and like is that income stream will continue. And then Instagram is more like every month looks different, you know.
Women already struggle in this in the workplaces, and this industry, obviously you're putting yourself out there. The backlash is always there. You get rude comments. How do you deal with that backlash?
It's a good question. I feel like you have to have thick skin. When I came, and that thick skin I've developed not just because of the ridiculous comments I get on Instagram, which there are many, and a lot of personal ones too. When I grew up in Bangladesh, when I was here for high school, I was bullied like very badly, to the point where it's called all kinds of names, and a girl who's 14 or 15 wouldn't be, not everyone would be able to take that. I feel like, but because of the love and care I had at home and like the love and care I had from my friends, I knew what I was worth. It was not always easy, but growing up, I built a thick skin. So going into it, it wasn't that bad. I know a lot of people still struggle, but at the end of the day, they're not paying your bills. And I feel like you just have to ignore. But obviously, like sometimes it gets very hard to ignore. And again, like you have to use your best judgment to see like whether or not like that confrontation is even important or not. But most of the time, ignore and move on.
Have you had any issues with I guess brands or other, you know, kind of not giving you, or not, I guess, thinking of you as someone worthy of certain things just because you're a woman? Like, have you had situations where like that?
Well, like with Instagram, not as much. With work, I'm like a brown woman living in a white man's world over there. With brands, it's not as much because I'm a woman. It's because of my color. Like sometimes I'll work with, I'm not going to name anyone obviously, but sometimes very few, not a lot, very few brands I've worked with, and you'll see them like repost a lot of stuff, and you'll go on their Instagram page or website and you'll just not see a lot of people of color, and it's just like, we create great content too, and have provided you with some, like, why is our content not on there? So I feel like that's very much a thing. I don't know if you're familiar with the DOTE. Like,
run me through it.
Yeah, so DOTE is like a they work with a lot of influencers. They're a fashion, I don't know if they're a fashion brand company, something along those lines. So they had like a press trip where they brought in a lot of influencers all over YouTube too. They brought in a lot of influencers, and they basically differentiated between people of color and like to the point where like a lot of like Hispanic girls, a lot of like African American girls were given like bunk beds, or like they had to sleep on the couch, and like everyone else, like everyone who's Caucasian got like a proper bed. You know, it was in today's world, you would think, and a fashion brand where you're scrutinized if like, you know what I mean, like you have to be so careful, but things like that happen a lot.
Talk to me about fast fashion and the I guess the world's kind of moving towards more sustainable sort of things. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I feel like
sorry to cut you off there. I guess and then how it would impact the industry you're in terms of fashion blogging and Instagram.
I feel like a lot of brands are recognizing that that's the path that we have to go towards. Like with H&M, they're doing that whole thing where you can bring in like used clothing and they'll recycle it and they'll use it for their newer products. I think it's important because I feel like fast fashion has encouraged us to like keep going through our clothes. You know what I mean? Even a few years ago, I didn't feel the need to like not wear something like twice, you know what I mean? Twice. Now you have to like, you wear it 3 times and it's just like, okay, like I'm guilty of it too. You know what I mean?
We all are.
We all are. And I feel like we're getting like an okay average quality with like cheap prices, and we just keep
not recycling per se, but you just keep moving on
throwing stuff out. I feel like it's very important to understand that that's contributing to the waste.
With the way brands work with you right now, how much of an impact does that have on this whole situation? Because I would imagine they'd send some stuff to you. So most of the time, most of the influencers wouldn't even wear it like outside the shoot or creating that content. What would be the pathway for them then? Like, do you think that the brands would then stop sending stuff that's just one-time use, or would they start thinking differently? And are there brands who are already doing that in your, I guess, experience?
Right. I personally wear everything I'm sent. Like this was sent to me.
Okay.
I'm still like, you know what I mean? What I do is I don't just let, like, when I work with fashion brands, I pick the clothing myself. And the way I try to make a more conscious effort to make sure that I'm not contributing to that waste is pick investment pieces.
Yeah.
So pieces that you can style in many different ways, wear a bunch of times, and like get a lot of use out of it and keep it longer in your closet, as opposed to just wearing it once at that one party and just like
throwing it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I guess in Bangladesh, the culture is very much into that sort of thing, especially in weddings.
Yeah. You wear one outfit that you spend so much money on too, and then it's done.
Yeah.
Keep it in your closet for longer. Find a friend. If you don't want it anymore, find a friend, or like sell it to someone. People think that like donating it helps keep that waste to a minimum. It doesn't, because when you're donating clothes that you don't want, a lot of people are donating things that even like people you donate to wouldn't wear them.
Right. It's like a 10 lakh taka sari with embroidered jewelry
that people would wear. But you know, like how when you're donating things, right? You're donating like that shirt that you spilled coffee on like 2 years ago, and like you're giving away because you feel like someone else would wear it. I feel like here, like people might wear it still, but even like I'm talking like on a global scale, no one would wear that. That still goes towards like disposal, and you have to dispose of it, and it's contributing to that waste.
Right. Kind of going away from that side of things, what has been your biggest, I guess, failure personally, and if there were any learnings out of it? If any. Yeah, no,
obviously there are many, and I constantly learn from it. I'm trying to think of a recent one. I think I personally, and like this isn't really like a failure, but I am someone, like, I always like being on top of things, and I feel like personally, like, this term has been a little slow for me, just because I've been going through a lot of like personal stuff, and there are other things that I focus on with me moving to New York even. I feel like I've just not been on top of things, and that's not just like related to work, like even with my relationships and stuff. I feel like I haven't probably given as much time as I could have. And I think that's my biggest failure recently.
And do you think your work life has had an impact on that?
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Because when you're a creator, I'm sure you can relate to, you're working all the time. There's no like clock in, clock out. It's always,
how do you tackle that then?
I've gotten used to it. Here's the thing, right? Like, we were talking about like privilege. I know we come from a point, I'm not going to say, I come from a point of privilege. I have the option of, just like walking out of like CS, for example, and just pursuing something else, because I know my parents got my back. Not a lot of people have that. A lot of people have to pay for their own things. You know what I mean? Their undergrad tuition. They can't just like, use out. That time, like the 2-year time that most people used to build their brand, like before you monetize. And I feel like, like I come from that point of privilege. So I usually try to remember that and like not complain as much and just keep going.
Do you think your friends and family understand this pathway that you've taken in terms of, like, the amount of work that you have to do? You obviously have to say no. Do you think that they've also gotten used to you being not available all the time for the things, or just, I guess, prioritizing work? And if not, how did you, I guess, tackle that?
My parents took a while to understand. Like, they're still understanding. They're still trying to understand what's going on. Like, why would someone take you on a trip? Like, why are people sending you things? Or like, why do you have to wake up in the morning and go to this podcast thing? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, what is going on? What is this? I feel like they learn gradually. Like, my best friends obviously know what I do and like support me. Relatives, not so much. We were talking about it earlier. Like, what are you doing? I don't know how to explain this. Right. And like, I don't know if I face this a lot. A lot of relatives will come across my page and like lose their head, right? Like send my dad a bunch of things. And I'm like, my dad follows me on Instagram. I don't know from what account. He doesn't tell me so that I don't block him.
Right.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, I care about like my immediate family. My parents are okay with it. My sister's cool with it. My best friends are cool with it. So everyone else can just follow along.
Right. It's interesting use of the F word. Talking about creative rut, or like obviously with this is something I face as well. Just doing the same thing, not the same thing, but doing all these things every day is mentally exhausting, creatively exhausting. And you get to a point where you don't want to do shit, or you start getting doubts about yourself and things like that. I'm sure you've been through that as well.
I'm sure you've too, with like creating videos.
Yeah. So how do you, I guess, get out from it?
You have to take time off.
Right.
Like you have to. I take a lot of breaks.
Right. Do you plan these breaks, or is it more like you burn yourself out and like?
Yeah, that's what happens. I take those breaks. They're very necessary. Like there have been days where I just couldn't do it.
Right.
And I took 2 days off, 3 days off, maybe a week if I need it.
And when you say off, do you mean completely off everything?
Working, but not in like content creation, because like those campaigns, they know what they want. You're just like helping them. But with your own things, like you are everything. You're the creative director. You're the executive producer. Like you're everything. You know what I mean? So I take the time off. Go to places that you draw inspiration from. Do more things that you could draw inspiration from. Draw inspiration from others and like get back into it. But yeah, like take time off. Right.
That's, I think, but sometimes when even after you do that and you come back, it just doesn't feel like it feels like constant, like, why did they actually take a break? But I think it's a common thing that pretty much every single creator is facing, especially in this digital world, because there's no, like you said, clock in or clock out. I think it'll be interesting to see where we get to after a few years from now. I guess from the perspective of someone you look up to in the space, is there anyone that you think are killing it in the industry, both locally and globally?
There's so many. There are so many people who are killing it right now. I have a bunch of people that I look up to. Nikki Mercilli, she's like an influencer blogger. She's absolutely killing it. KK Lay, there's so many people out there. If I it's gonna take me a full day. I think there are so many local bloggers, influencers who are really stepping it up and really doing a great job at what they're doing right now.
Which also, I guess, brings me to the question of saturation in this industry. So I guess when you've got a phone, when you've got certain, I guess, understanding, the great part is anybody can do it, but the worst part is anybody can do it.
Right.
So how do you then build a unique side to your brand in your experience?
I think it's important to, and it's like such a jaded and like overused term or like thing, but it's like it's still so important, is to just be yourself.
Right.
A lot of people just don't understand that that's what will set you apart. In my case, for example, I understand that I don't live here, and I've moved to Toronto for a bit. Now I'm in New York. I use all of that to my advantage. I'm like, okay, do you know anyone who's just lived in 3 places in the last I don't know how many years, you know what I mean? And doing there's so many different mundane things that even set you apart. You have to I guess use that to your advantage. A lot of people, especially even here I'm seeing now, is just a lot of content is becoming similar, you know what I mean? It's the same things, something, one influencer or a blogger will create something and it'll blow up, it'll go viral, and everyone wants to jump that bandwagon. But at the end of the day, you're not a thought leader in that industry, then you're a follower, right? You want to be a thought leader. So do more, even if it sounds crazy to you, is this even gonna work? Just give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? So
just going forward and making sure that your unique perspective is out there.
Out there, and be vocal. A lot of people don't like showing their actual personality. but like people relate to the human behind the photo, right? Your feed is like a highlight reel. It's curated. It's the polished version of you. Use your stories to tell the story. You know what I mean? Stories. The actual story, your personality. I get personal sometimes.
Yeah, I see your stories sometimes, and it's like so many, I guess, personal stuff in there that you would have, I think, answered questions and address issues that you would have faced. How well engaged? Well, how well do you get in terms of engagement in those things? Because I guess there's some people say there are rules about like you don't post more than 4 or 5 stories. Some say like this formulas that you have to follow. You seem to have kind of break them every now and then. So how well do they perform in terms of? I mean, obviously you don't want them to perform for the sake of performing because you're actually being authentic. Do you have certain ways that you plan, or you just go for it on the stories?
With my stories, I don't plan anything. There is no formula. Like do whatever you want to. Again, like the more consistent you are, the better actually. I keep telling everyone, and like even when I send over my media kit and stuff, more than my follower count, my likes, my comments, I stress the reach and the impressions. A lot of people will engage with you via DMs or like your stories, or like look at those things and not actually hit that like button. But it doesn't matter. The conversion is the same. They're still looking at it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that works really well. Like with stories, I talk to people, a lot of people daily, and I actually like thoroughly enjoy it because I'm able to have like these conversations. Exactly. These connections that doesn't feel forced at all.
Right. What do you think is the future of this social media content creation industry from your perspective?
Right. The future is bright.
Okay.
I think that I think it's great that now I would consider like bloggers, influencers, like they started off as consumers, right? You're giving consumers more power now. You know what I mean? Before, a brand would just, push products and hope for the best, or like create an idea and like just expect people to adapt whatever they're putting out there. But now it's just like people will have different opinions, and you really have to bring it. And I feel like because like there is content create because of social media, like brands really have to like step it up now as well. And I think because it's such a big market, it's only gonna grow
bigger.
Yeah.
I remember the question I was gonna ask you.
Yes. You hyped it so much. This better be.
No likes on Instagram.
What?
No likes on Instagram. Right. So you've
likes on Instagram. Right.
So you've been on. Well, you lived in Canada when it happened.
It tested. I was one of the people.
I was in Australia as well. That's what I want to talk to you about, because I don't think a lot of other people have experienced that. There's been a lot of talk about this whole thing, that how it'll how it'll cause issues for the influencer market, for social media market, how it's not about mental health. I want to know your thoughts about that.
Right. So again, it was tested in Canada. I was one of the people it was tested on. I couldn't see any likes. Personally, I don't think it affected me as much, again, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to just put out content out there. I don't really care for like the likes or like comments. And when I send over my media kit, like I said, I focus on my impressions.
Correct, because you can still see that stuff.
Yeah, you can see, you still see it yourself. You just can't see it on other people. I can see why people would be concerned, just because it kind of that is used to see the credibility, like likes you compare likes to your following. If you are able to see the likes, you can kind of like figure out who's using fake followers and fake likes. And a lot of time, if you hide that, I am concerned that like you might not be able to. Because again, like content, the algorithm is still gonna use those likes and the engagement to show you content that has more of it. Just because likes is gone doesn't mean the algorithm changes as well. It's still the same.
Exactly. So you're happy for Instagram to actually push this out?
I'm indifferent, to be honest.
Okay, right. Doesn't really concern you.
Yeah.
Right. And do you think your engagement has been more or less, like, from a user perspective? Did you start using it more? Did you start liking things more?
I think people stopped liking things more just because they couldn't see it.
Right.
I feel like they stopped.
Wow, it's interesting.
Yeah.
For me, I think I started liking stuff more.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I haven't really thought about it from that perspective. But I feel when there were no likes, I felt that, because sometimes it actually influences you when you're on a feed. Like if something has maybe 3,000 likes, you want to think, oh, okay, this is actually cool. That actually influences the content. But when there's like one like on a post, you sometimes might not want to double tap because you feel like, oh, maybe this isn't that good or important or something like that. So when that's taken out of, because for me, it actually influenced me.
Right.
So I started liking it more. So it's going to be interesting to see how others, because I spoke to someone, she's also, very big on Instagram, and she said that Instagram's doing this because of the brand, like they don't want brands to go straight to the people. They want brands to go straight to Instagram,
right?
Because then the people won't, then Instagram can start monetizing the people who are using the influencers. They'll have to pay, like what Facebook does.
I feel like Instagram's goal is to just pull out more money wherever they can. I can see where you're coming from though. I can see how, like, without likes, people might be even more confident with like their content, and like they don't have to be judged over likes, and like they will be more willing to put out content themselves as well.
Right. What I would say, what is your personal goal in sight for the next 5 years, or in the next 5 years?
I want to, first of all, finish my master's. It's not going to take me 5 years, hopefully. I want to work in New York for a little bit. I want to work at an agency.
Yeah, fantastic.
I want to do more creative work there.
Yeah.
I want to continue growing our clothing brand, which we haven't been able to just because I was in Toronto. My sister was in New York. I want to work on that, and I want to continue working on projects here as well.
Right. And with your brand, do you want to push it out in North America as well?
For sure.
Right. That's awesome. That would be, I think, a very cool step for you. And you're in New York. I mean, man, that's like
I need to use this.
That's like literally the place for, where you want to be for creative, for fashion, for marketing. It's a little bit jealous. So is Tanzim behind the camera, I'm sure, because we talk about it all the time. Finally, if someone wanted to walk your path in specifically to build an audience on Instagram or to create content online, what are 3 actionable steps, and the keyword's actionable, what are 3 actionable steps that they can take to take right now, take the headphones off and start doing pretty much?
First is obviously think about what you want to do. Yeah. So if you want to do fashion, beauty, if you just want to do fashion, like think about, I know this is like easy, like it's very like small things, but think about what you want to do and get started. Yeah. Start taking photos, videos, whatever your content will look like. Yeah. Start doing
Doesn't matter about the quality. Just
start posting. Talk to people who are in similar fields. Talk to them, and see what works for them. Talk to people locally, who are local, just because your content will do similarly to theirs, and like your journey will look similar to theirs. Right. And get started. And like just do more research. Like use hashtags for sure. Yeah. Tag locations. Tag brands. Yeah. And just get started.
Just get the technicality side of things as well. Where can people find you, Lamisa, online?
Right. They can find me on Instagram at the Damsel in Dispute. My email's on there as well. Yep. I respond to all my DMs. Yep. And I'm here in Bangladesh till January 15th. So.
Well, this is going to go out after that. So.
Well, I will be in New York. If you're there, come say hi.
Fantastic. It was a pleasure, Lamisa.
You too. Thank you, Hal, for having me.
Not a problem.